I can sing to you this song. I just want to say that I love you more than anything. I lift my hands in total adoration unto you. For you reign on the throne, for you are God and God alone. Because of you, my cloudy days are gone. I can sing to you this song, and I just want to say that I love you more than anything. I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore you. I just want to tell you, Lord, I love you more than anything. Can you help me say, I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore. Just want to tell you, Lord, I love you. How many of you love him tonight more than anything? Yeah. I love you, Jesus. Yes, I do. I worship and adore. Just want to tell you, Lord, I love you more than anything. Come on, let's take it back to the top, Joe. Say, I lift my hands in total adoration to you. For you reign upon the throne. For you are God and God alone. Because of you, my cloudy days are gone. I can sing to you this song. I just want to say that I love you more than anything. Come on, let's say it one more time. Yeah. Say, I lift my hand in total adoration. How many of you know that he reigns? For you reign upon the throne. On the throne, for you are God. And God alone. Because of you, my cloudy days, they're all gone. I will sing to you this song. I just want to say that I love you more than anything. Hey, I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore you. I just want to tell you, Lord, I love you. Yes, I do, Lord, more than anything. Oh, I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore you, Lord. Everything I have belongs Just want to tell
you,
Lord, I love
you
more than anything. Yeah, I love you, Jesus. Come on, if you love him, you tell him. I worship and adore you. Just want to tell you. Lord, I love more than anything. One more time. I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore you. Just want to tell you. Lord, I love you more
than anything.
Oh, say, Lord, I love you more.
Lord, I love you more than anything.
More than everything that this whole world could ever give me. Lord, I love you
More than anything.
one more time. Help me say, Lord, I love you
More than anything.
more than anything. One more time, Lord. Lord, I love you more.
Than anything.
Thank you, Jesus.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon. No. Nope. Good afternoon. All right. So we're doing things a little different tonight. As y'all know, I am not a minister. I told them I am here in a professional capacity. Okay? All right. I'm supposed to tell y'all thank you. Y'all can sit down. All right, so for those of y'all that don't know me, my name is Brittany Anderson. I have been a member here since 2012. Is that 2012? Yes. Professionally, I am a licensed clinical social worker associate. I got to throw that A in there for now because I'm not fully licensed yet. I have been twiddling my thumbs for about 5 years on my license. So we're going to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart tonight. Is it up there yet? Oh, no, it's not up there yet. Okay. Mental health. So where I'm coming from today, I'm going to give y'all some stats, but on my way here, all I kept hearing was, this is a conversation. I can stand up here and talk to y'all for hours, and if y'all know me, y'all know I can talk for hours with no breaks. But today it's a conversation, and I really want us to metaphorically get naked. Please keep your clothes on. Metaphorically, I want us to get a little naked, okay? So, but before we get started, I want everybody to just point at somebody. Okay? How many fingers is pointing out? 1. How many fingers is pointing at yourself? 4. 3 and a thumb. I heard that on the way here because I think a lot of times we are so worried about what's going on with the person next to us that we forget we got our own stuff. So, yes, we're streaming. Some people might share, and I'm even going to share my story But I don't care because y'all don't have the power over that story. I do. Every time somebody shares something, if you're so worried about taking it to the next person, you're forgetting about them 3 fingers and a thumb that's pointing back at you. Okay? This is meant to, Pastor said, to do an intro to mental health. Y'all know, of course, I can't just stop right there, but we're going to get there. So, do we have mics? Because this is mic runners, y'all going to be real busy tonight. Do we have mics? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, okay. So the first question I want to ask is, what is mental health? I want to see what y'all's understanding of mental health is. Where are we at in the room? Now, don't all talk at one time. I will put a mic in your face. Anybody? Somebody. Toya, I'm looking at you, but I ain't looking at you. Okay, so she said how your mind is, the health of your mind. So according to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. So your mental health is not just a physical, it's emotional, psychological, and your social well-being. Your mental health affects how you think, how you feel, and how you act. It's all intertwined. It also helps you determine how you handle stress, how you relate to others, and how you make healthy decisions. So I'm not going to call it an unhealthy mind. We'll get on that later. But if you're not sitting in the right place mentally, you can't be in the right place physically. You can't be in the right place socially. You cannot be in the right place, period. How you interact with others, how you behave, how you talk, how you act, all of that is interconnected. So kind of just to get the logistics out of the way, so the types of mental illness. So for people like me who are able to diagnose people with mental health illness, we use what's called the DSM-5. Now we'll talk about it a little bit later. I am going to give you a little tidbit. When I was in grad school, in one of my classes, it was a really big realization that a lot of us people of color had, is that the DSM holds over 300 mental disorders. But when you go down the list of them and what qualifies it, we had to step back and we had to think of when it was written and who wrote it. So this is going to step on people's toes, and I don't care. A lot of the mental illnesses that are in the DSM-5 is what mental illness looks like for a middle to wealthy class white woman. It don't cater to us. It was never meant to cater to us. If you go back historically, we were seen as property. Therefore, we couldn't have mental health issues because we didn't have the pressure of bringing in income. Carry it forward more. Black people are supposed to be able to handle more. We're supposed to take more pain. We're supposed to be able to handle it and handle it gracefully. So therefore, we don't have mental health issues, right? So just kind of keeping that in mind when you hear people talk about certain disorders, it may not show up in you like it says it's supposed to in the book, right? So just the categories of mental illness, you have mood disorders, which is where depression and bipolar fall under. You have anxiety disorders, personality disorders, psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia, eating disorders, trauma-related disorders such as post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance abuse disorders. Now, who has heard of any of those classes? I'm sure. They out there, right? Sometimes we don't know how to put a name on it, but they're out there. So I'm going to give y'all a couple stats before we get into it. So the kids are not here, and, I deal primarily with children. And so I have a hard time sometimes finding out which stats should be important, but who in here are parents? So those stats are important, period. So 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by the age of 14. 75 by the age of 24. So what that means is 3 out of every 4 people have had some type of interaction with mental health before they are 24 years old. Do y'all remember where y'all were at 24? Can you imagine? Do you remember the stuff that you was dealing with? Now let's add on top of that mental health. Right? So in the US, 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health problem every single year. So that's at least one person just over on that side. That's about 5 people in this room that experience a mental health issue. And I can tell you that the number is higher. Because what you have to keep in mind with statistics is this is self-reporting. So a lot of us in this room that look like each other in this room, we're not reporting. So I can only imagine what this real number is. In 2020, 12 million plus had serious thoughts of suicide. Over 12 million Americans had serious thoughts. Now, there's a difference between a thought and a serious thought. You can think something. A serious thought is I'm taking it a step further. I know what I want to do. I know how I need to get it done. In our youth, 1 in 6 experienced major depression from the ages of 12 to 17. 1 in 3 from the ages of 18 to 25. And 3 million of those youth had serious thoughts of suicide. So I'll kind of back up a little bit. So like I said, I'm a social worker. I have been a social worker about 12 years. But if you hear some of my teachers from high school tell it, I was a social worker then because I kept trying to save people that didn't need to be saved. According to my algebra teacher, I took in strays. I don't know if I agree or if I disagree. The jury is still out on that one. I found myself stumbling into social work because I just had this strong desire to help people. What I didn't realize until I got older is that it was actually me that needed the help. So if you follow me on Facebook, I have these things called like transparent moments. So I have been dealing with severe major depression since the age of 8. Between 8 and 9, I want to say I attempted to kill myself 3 times. I say attempted because now looking back, the plans I had, it would never have happened. However, in my 8-year-old mind, I didn't want to be here. I wrote letters all the time. And what's funny is with our community is this is no fault to my parents because they didn't know no better. We don't talk about these things. Instead of getting the help that I needed, I got in trouble because I wrote it down. That was it. I got in trouble because I had those thoughts. How dare I have those thoughts? I had a good life. I had everything I needed. I had clothes on my back, shoes on my feet, food in my mouth, and a roof over my head. How dare I have thoughts of not wanting to be here and not being grateful? Right? So that put me into this realm of the work that I do. And I tell the kids all the time, in this journey that I have walked, there is literally nothing that nobody in this room could tell me that's going to blow my mind. I done seen some stuff. I done heard some stuff. Nothing amazes me. And that's also where I get my slogan is mind your own sin. Because you never know the path that somebody else is walking. And if you're so busy worried about them, you ain't fixing yourself. Right? I like to think of mental health as, sometimes people see it as this highway. It's like, oh, this is it. You know, you act like this, you look like this, you do this. But mental health is actually a trail. We're going to have some bobs, some weaves. We're going to fall over some rocks. It's going to be some twigs in the way. It might be some flat areas where we coasting and we can look at the sun. Oh, man, we can look at this ocean view over here. Oh, hold on, but if you don't pay attention, you're going to fall off the edge, right? So one of the things that kind of, I don't want to say determines, but it helps people kind of realize when they are predisposed to certain mental health illnesses. So it's something that we call ACEs. Has anyone ever heard of ACEs? Okay, so y'all going adverse childhood events, okay? So I want us to take this quiz together. You do not have to answer out loud, but I want you to think about before your 18th birthday. So every time you answer yes, I want you to add 1, okay? Number 1, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? Number 2, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured? Did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you touch or fondle you, or have you touch their body in a sexual way, or attempt or actually have oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse with you? Number 4, did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? Did you often or very often feel that you did not have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, and had no one to protect you, or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to the doctor if needed? Number 6, were your parents ever separated or divorced? Number 7, was your mother or stepmother often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her, or sometimes often or very often kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard, or ever repeatedly hit over at least a few minutes or threatened with a gun or a knife? Number 8, did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or used street drugs? Number 9, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide? Number 10, did a household member go to prison? All right. Did anybody score a 0? If you scored a 0, you're at low risk. 1 to 3, intermediate risk. 4 or higher, high risk. So one of the things with that is that kind of pushes us in to, unfortunately, the African American community are generally lower socioeconomic, live in certain neighborhoods. So if you were to go down that list, how many people heard a question on that list that was just like, all right? That's every day. Or that's a normal thing. And that's how we're conditioned to think, that's normal. I've worked with a lot of kids that I have asked some of these questions and they've been like, okay, where you going with that? For some of us, those become our resiliency factors, the things that can push us and make us a little stronger. For some of us, those become our risk factors that can then aid in the substance use or abuse in a household or even that mental illness. Because some of those factors are social factors. They are biological factors, but childhood adversity is one of the biggest ones. How many of y'all have watched movies and they've been like, they go to a psychiatrist and they say, so tell me about your childhood. That's where it starts. What we see is, as much as we try to fight it, it becomes ingrained. What we see is what we know. Y'all seen how many times I raised my hands? All I wanted to be in life was a mom. And as soon as I became a mom, I got scared that I was going to be my mom, who I talk to once every 5 years. But I was scared that I was going to be her. What we know is what we learn, right? So kind of moving away just from that, I want to kind of open it back up to see, how can you tell whether or not someone is depressed? How can you tell if somebody has mental health issues? What does it look like? What does that person look like? Isolated. Okay. So that person is isolating themselves? Okay. What else? Dave?
Sometimes it doesn't have a face, because just using myself, for example, who suffered from depression in 2006, a lot of people, only person knew I was depressed was my wife. But she wasn't my wife at the time. But she was the only one, because everybody else that I was around, I put on a front. So she was the only one, that was able to see behind closed doors what was going on with me. I used up all my vacation time from work just so I didn't have to go to work on Mondays, because Mondays was the worst. It was like, because everything came full circle again. It was the beginning of the week, and it was like, it made you feel worse because you had to go around other people back in the workplace. So when you're at home on the weekends, you can hide the depression. So you think. Yeah. So I would say it doesn't always have a face. It depends on the person and what you want people to see and what you don't.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll just say that, and keeping it simple, it looks like us. Just as simple as it can get. It's us.
You want to add something? So she said it can look medicated or it can look zoned out.
I would say that a person shakes and moves.
A person shakes and moves a little different than what you're used to seeing. So I thought it would be really, really important to go over some of the early signs, not just for us, but for our kids, because y'all heard those numbers. And then just to put on top of it, African Americans are 20% more likely to have a serious psychological distress than whites are. So we just kind of keep just adding that stuff up. We just add it up, but it's something we don't talk about, right? And it's everyday people that look like all of us. So this is for y'all, but it's also for our kids. Pay attention. As much as, if I didn't tell y'all, probably 90% of y'all in this room would never know that I've suffered from depression since I was 8 or 9. Because, like I said, getting away from that DSM definition, what you see in the movies where they're just in the bed crying for weeks, got the curtains drawn, don't go to work, don't go nowhere. We got bills to pay. We got stuff to do. We got kids to take care of. So we learn how to put a smile on most days and keep on about our business. And sometimes our spouses can't even realize and don't even know. Those the closest to us have no idea what's going on in our minds. So some of these early signs to look for: feeling very sad or withdrawn from friends for more than 2 weeks. And I'll tell you why that's significant. So whenever you come to someone like me or someone that's diagnosing, when they're asking questions, those questions are going to say in the last 2 weeks, in the last 14 days. Because if it's gone on for that long, it's something a little bit more significant than, oh, I'm feeling sad today. If this has been going on for 2 weeks, it's something a little bit more there, right? Seriously trying to cause physical harm to themselves or others, avoiding activities that they would normally enjoy doing, drastic changes in mood, behavior, or personality. So maybe they're sleeping a little bit too much, they're eating a little, very, very little, or vice versa on either of those. They're feeling hopeless, having consistently low energy, using mood-altering substances, so that alcohol, that nicotine, illicit drugs, being confused, being unable to complete daily tasks. So for me, and again, it looks different in everyone. For me, when I can start to tell that I'm starting to spiral downwards, my house starts to look a mess. And I start to spend a whole lot more time in the bed. Now, when I come to church, of course, I don't got to clean the church. I don't have to sleep. I'm not sleeping on my chair, so y'all don't notice. But when I go home, that's what my husband sees. Oh, I just slept 10 hours last night, but here I am. I only been up for an hour, and I'm trying to go back and take a nap. I spent a lot of time wanting to just take a nap. And oh, my God, I'm so tired. I just woke up from a full night's sleep, and I can't get it together. Everything that the kids do, they hit my nerves. I can't handle it, right? Displaying negative emotions. Having persistent thoughts or memories that reappear regularly. So we call this like ruminating on things. Like you just can't get it out your mind. Like you just keep thinking about this one thing over and over and over and over again. Those racing thoughts, right? Seeing, hearing, or believing things that are not real. So, someone in my immediate family was recently diagnosed with schizophrenia. They are in their early 20s, and now you see that person, and they have full conversations with themselves. A lot of us in our community, what would we say? They crazy. Like, what they on? Ooh, and that's how we kind of hinder each other, because our first thought go to, let's step over here. Ooh, who is he talking to? Right? Without knowing that person has a serious mental illness. And one of the ways that it started to show up is hearing those voices and realizing that things might be sitting right here that ain't really there. And so one of the things I do now is evaluations for people to go into nursing homes, and that's a question that I have to ask. And people go, well, I wouldn't know. People that see and hear things know that those things are not there. So you would know. And I have people tell me every day, I hear them talking over there. Well, what are they saying? I can't make out what they're saying, but they're talking. I see that nurse standing over there in that corner. You see that little girl playing with them toys over there? They know. They know that it's not real, but when you start to hear things or see things, that's an early flag, an early sign. Sudden and overwhelming fear for no reason. Ladies that have been pregnant, after you had your child, did you have a fear? Let's say you're walking down the stairs and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna drop my baby. Or they're in their crib, oh, they're not breathing. Let me just go feel on them. Let me go check on them. One of the things we don't talk about a lot is postpartum and postpartum anxiety. They are streaming.
I wasn't going to say anything about this. This is my first time ever seeing that you just said. Mm-hmm. And my grandson will be 9 months coming up. And like you said, it kind of scared me because I never seen it. When we had kids, we didn't go through that. She got depressed, like you said. She shut everything down. She was scared. And every day I would have to do a house, and I had to go up there and stay till her fiance get there. But thank God she coming out of it now because she don't start back driving. She don't start back cooking. But what she messed up at, she put a day in of work, and she put resign. And she didn't know what she was doing. And so the principal called her father and said, something ain't right. This is not love. And then she said, well, Mama, I'm in trouble. The police gonna come and get me. I said, Lord, you haven't done anything. Like you said, it was her mind playing tricks with her. And so I just kept praying with her. And then, she have an identical twin sister. And, you know how close they are. And she kept calling her. So she would want us to spend the night. So I would spend the night. But then I said, Lord, I got to go. I can't stay here all day. I can't make no money sitting here. So I would go back and I would spend the night. And then I said, we just got to continue to pray. I said, you need to keep yourself oiled down and oil your baby and oil your house, do what you got to do and just keep on praying. I said, and then she said that she told the principal that she don't want to come back to work right now because when she put in that day took a day off, she said that she thought that she left a child in the classroom. But she didn't. Everything was covered. But just continue to pray for her. But she didn't come with that suicide that she gonna kill herself or none of that. But she had them start by cooking and start by driving. But she's still in a little fear because she was asking me, called me 3 times today, and asked me will I ride with her down there because she don't feel safe in the car driving by herself with her baby.
So I would urge you to have her speak with her doctor. So a lot of times when we go back for that checkup and they give you that PHQ-9, we lie. Who done lie? I done lied on her before.
I don't try to
And still came up depressed.
I don't try to get her to go 4 or 5 times. I cannot get her to go to the doctor right
So we'll connect afterwards. Okay?
now. All right, thank you.
Because we hear a lot about postpartum depression, but that postpartum anxiety, I have a friend who, same thing, she didn't even trust her husband to touch the baby. So those things are very, very serious. And we're conditioned to lie because we're taught to be as the women in the room, what are we taught to be? Strong, independent. You chose to have that baby. You take care of it. Those are the things in our community that's ingrained in us, so we don't know how to ask for help. We don't know how to say, you know what, this is a problem. And I will say it was a thing when y'all were pregnant. Nobody spoke up about it. Postpartum depression was a thing. The baby blues, it was a thing. And when people say, oh, I got an aunt, oh, her nerves just bad. That ain't nerves.
Our whole culture as black people is like that.
Absolutely.
Growing up, most of us ain't grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in the hood. You couldn't come to your mom talking about no mental health issues. All of that stuff got suppressed. And then you grow up being 40 years old trying to go see somebody. Thank God I got help from Jesus. But I still, when I moved to North Carolina as a 30-something-year-old man, I still had to talk about these things because it wasn't allowed in my house. It was frowned upon. As far as talking about, I wouldn't even think about mentioning it because I knew it wasn't accepted.
Yep.
And that's why a lot of us deal with what we deal with because it was suppressed growing up.
Absolutely. So that's actually a perfect segue into my next question, which is, why are we afraid to talk about mental health? Why? So that was a perfect question. Sean has his hand up. That was literally a perfect segue into my next thing.
Just because, just like Dave said, we as African Americans, you go all the way back to slavery time and on.
Yep.
We was meant to be tough. If we had issues and problems, there was no such a thing. So mental health, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but mental health was always in the black community was said that's a white person thing. Black people don't have that. That's a white person thing. So that's been embedded in us for generations, just like we talk a lot about generational curses and everything. That's been embedded in us through generations.
Absolutely.
And so now we're at the moment of trying to break that generational curse or whatever you want to call it, and it's very hard because it is embedded into our psyche, embedded into our, our being, everything. So that's where we at on that.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was, putting my stuff together, it came up with like statements that we would say, right? It goes into that mental health stigma that we have created. That negative reaction to people. Oh, you going to therapy? Oh, you doing this? Oh, you doing that? So who has said, we don't suffer from mental illness? Black people, we don't do that. I'm strong enough to handle it on my own. Our ancestors have been through much worse. Keep it inside the family. What happened in these walls, stay in these walls. If I go to therapy, I don't have enough faith. Right? So the literature suggests that African Americans are much more likely to rely on their faith as a coping mechanism than to go to a mental health professional. A study found that 90.4 of African Americans reported using religion as a coping mechanism to deal with their mental health issues. Right? Because we taught to do what? Pray it away. Prayer absolutely works. And God gave some of us gifts to help people push through it. Right? So there's a scripture I was trying to look up, what it says in the Bible about mental health. And you see the word anxious a lot. So I was trying to go back to say, okay, well, back then, was anxious even a word? Like, what is it? And it's that weariness, that burden, that feeling heavy. And in 2 Timothy 1:7, it said, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. The way that I look at that is not in the sense that I think some people use it. Just like, the don't be weary, don't be anxious for nothing. We use it as a hold fast to your faith. God will take it away from you, so don't question it. Just pray, just pray, just pray, just pray. And instead of looking at it, if God gave us a spirit not to fear, then that means I should be able to talk to my brother and my sister. I shouldn't be scared to step into the church and say, I'm not doing good today. Because of the power and the love and the self-control. Because Jesus is love. And if we try to be in the same spirit of Jesus, then that means we should be love, right? So when someone is coming to us and they have the power to step out of their fear and to come to you and say, I'm not doing good. I've been down for 2 weeks. I ain't ate, I ain't slept, I can't do nothing. They had the power to step out of that, and because you have love, you can help them, right? But that's not how we look at it in the church. That ain't how we look at it. How many people have felt like an outsider in the church when the topic of mental health was brought up? I have. Y'all ain't got to raise your hand. I have. It's seen as you're not supposed to question it. You're not supposed to ask, what do you do when prayer and faith don't seem like enough? What's the next step? Because I've had people tell me, oh, just pray a little harder. Well, and I have had to tell people, well, you might have a direct connection to God that I ain't got. So why don't you pick up your phone and tell him, come see about me? Right? So what do? But we can't come into these four walls and tell people that. Because then it's, you ain't got the faith. Your mustard seed is smaller than a mustard seed. Because you don't believe.
Even when you pray, you are still, you're not, just because you're praying, to the Lord doesn't mean that, I have to just trust God alone and not rely on the
Absolutely.
resources that's on the outside. We
Yes.
have to realize that it's still God, because he's placed the gifts into people for them to be here for the people that are suffering from those things. And if you're not smart enough to realize that, you need to come on around, because that's still God. You know what I'm saying? So just like he placed gifts in us, he placed the gift in everybody else on the outside that will cover everything that you're going through. And it's still God.
Absolutely. So you remember when I in the beginning, when I talked about your mental health is just like your physical. If you broke down, you can go to the doctor, right?
I think lots of times people that are in leadership, for example, have a hard time showing weakness, and therefore they have to fight in silence. I think that's a big issue.
And I'll challenge that because it's true. You remember we talked about stigmas. But when I tell you, when I started putting up statuses, just saying, you know what, I need to be transparent. Boy, when I tell you the text messages, the private messages, the comments that I got of somebody saying, man, I'm going through the same thing and I couldn't put it in words. Thank you for that. So just imagine if our leaders who were going through something said, you know what, y'all, this ain't been a good week. I got 4 out of 10. And them 4 is, man, it's like 3 in a possible. Imagine, right? But we're so concerned about how people perceive us. And remember, 4 fingers, 3 fingers and a thumb, pointing back at us. We so worried about what other people are going to say and think about, when really the things that we're going through is a testimony to the next person. You don't know what you're unlocking for the next person. The moment that I felt free was the moment that I became unapologetically myself. And again, like I said, I can share my story because I'm the one that got the power in that story. There ain't nobody in this church, in this world, that can come say anything to me that's going to hurt me, because I don't give them the power to do that. The Brittany that y'all get at 904 East Main Street, I was about to say my address, is the same Brittany that if you catch me in the street, I'm the same Brittany. The moment that I decided to be me, it was loose. Because if you got a problem with how I am, that's your problem. Take that up with yourself. Don't come see about me. I'm good. Hold on, let's get you a mic. Because I know you're about to say something good.
There was a time when I used to work at Duke in the pediatric side. I worked with, most times the kids in there were dealing with anxiety and depression. But one thing that came to my mind while you talk, I think people don't even understand Jesus was anxious. Jesus went through anxiety on the cross, before the cross, to the point he was sweating blood.
Wow.
Like it was heavy. That was anxiety. So he even asked God, say, can you take this away? If it is your will, take it away. It was anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's not a shame. It's not a thing of shame. And why I brought this, I was talking to this kid. I said, never be ashamed of it. Talk to somebody. Because she wanted to kill herself. She was going to commit suicide. And when I brought this, she said, Jesus went through anxiety? I said, yes. And I had to read to her the passage or the place where it talked where it directed us to where what he went through. But the biggest thing here was, if we go through it again, read through the passage where Jesus before the cross, he was sweating blood. He was dripping. His sweat was no more water. It was blood. And for Jesus to almost want to tell God, take it away, you know, he didn't want to go through it because he was carrying the sins like everybody's sin, the things he did not do. And so this is also anxiety. And I did not understand it until I read it and had to help this kid. That is not a thing of shame, like you said, for us to get help. If Jesus went through anxiety,
Right. Who are
that's
we?
Jesus. Who are we?
Who are
That
we?
we will not deal with things like that. You
Yeah.
know, so it's not a thing of shame. We can seek help. Because if Jesus went through it, we will go through it. You know. Amen. That's what I wanted to
Absolutely.
add.
Ooh, that was good. That was good. That was good. So, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Quite all right. Just felt led to say this.
Put your mic up just a little bit.
Okay, my voice is soft. Coming from the perspective of seeking counsel or mental health help, I was thinking about from the perspective of, because this is part of my testimony, having been raised with someone with mental health challenges, and then later dealing with someone like that, it forced me, because they wouldn't go, it forced me to come to the point of brokenness, because I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, I didn't want people to know what I was going through, as well as what they were going through, and I was afraid, because I felt like if I said something, there would be repercussions. So it forced me, I just feel like the Lord allowed me to get to the point, or however you want to see it, of brokenness, so that I would get to the point where I'd see that I've got to do something. And if I don't do something, then this is going to become perhaps even tragic. And so I sought help. And in me seeking counsel, it opened a door for the Lord to use that to begin to move into situations, to begin to wash away some of the mess, and not always get to them, but at least touch their lives to the degree that maybe sometimes medication was involved or different things happen. But there are other ways to look at it, so that perhaps the person that you're dealing with gets the help that they need, or you become a conduit so that you can become one that God can use to bring that about.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, that was a lonely space that you were in. You were by yourself, right? Because you felt like you had to keep that. God don't want us to be by ourselves. Yeah, it is. It's isolating. Absolutely.
Challenges yourself. So I questioned my own sanity. I had thoughts of suicide. I remember driving across a bridge thinking I'm going to go off. But God, thank God, he didn't allow that. And so as I moved past that, and I got to the place where, fortunately, I had people in my life at the time who were strong brothers and sisters in Christ, some clinical psychologists, different people who were able to step in and speak to me and began to pull me to the side and counsel with me. And so as that developed over time, people began to criticize me because I would go to Christian counseling. I had people in my own family who were still living in the world who would say, what is wrong with you? Are these counselors good enough? And I'd say, well, the Bible says the fool that will, receive godly counsel. And so I'm not putting down the people in the world. I think you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But at the same time, I wanted to do it scripturally. And so, without being long-winded, God did use that to bring me to a better place.
Thank you for sharing that. So that really kind of segues us into, this is going to be my last topic. I told y'all, I'm getting in my groove now. It's okay to talk about suicide. I said it. It's okay to talk about suicide. If we don't talk, what happens? And what happens when somebody suppresses that thought? It's going to come back. and it's going to come back, and it's going to come back until they do something about it. And it can't come back no more. We have to be willing to ask the hard questions. Am I my brother and sister's keeper? Can you truly say that you are your sister's keeper or your brother's keeper if you ain't asking them the hard questions? Or are you just a yes man? Right? So suicide is a leading cause of death in the United States. Second among people from 10 to 14. Second among people from 10 to 14. Third among people from 15 to 24. Among those who die by suicide, 90% have experienced mental health symptoms. 79% of those that die by suicide are male. So I call back the question that, you're being taught, y'all are breaking those generational curses as men because men ain't supposed to talk about it. You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to keep it together. 79% are male, right? And I know we just came off of this topic. It was so important to me. The LGBT community are 4 times more likely. So when we talk about love and Jesus' love, that's for everybody. So I see Rodrika has the mic, and I want you to go ahead and say that, and then we're going to go into how you start that conversation.
I just wanted to say, when you asked the question, am I my brothers and sisters keeper? I think that is very important, like you've been saying, to, be mindful of those fingers that are pointing back at yourself as well. Because for me, I am that strong friend that everybody comes to. Everybody pours out what they're going through, and I try to be that person to uplift and to make sure that, my friends, my family, everybody, that I'm being my brother and sister's keeper. But there are also times when I need somebody to pour into me. And there are times when I feel like, everybody's coming to me, but I have my own stuff, So it is very important to be able to check on yourself, because if you don't, then you're not going to be any good for anybody else. So I just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. And so we're going to talk about the conversation, but it's important when you start to recognize. So I know the word y'all like to use is click. So my click, it was a few months ago where I had to send them a text message, or we do Marco Polo all day, every day. And I had to send them because I had been fine. And I was like, y'all, I ain't doing good. It's been about 2 weeks, and I'm not taking my medicine, and I just can't get it together. And it was immediately that one of them started praying. And every day they checked on me, Britt, you take your medicine? How you feeling today? What you doing? But I could have easily kept my mouth shut and not said nothing because I know how to do that. And I was like, you know what? I said I wanted a village. I got my village. Now I have to actually let them village me. Right? You got to be careful what you ask for. So you ask for these people to come into your life and to support you, but if they don't know, they can't support you. So I had to step out of my zone and say, y'all, I'm not doing good. And they didn't know, because like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. And I'm the person, like, I notice it, like, what's going on with you? And it's hard because the strong friend is always strong. So kind of just starting that conversation, right? Y'all think it's something hard? It ain't. I've been worried about you. How are you really? I noticed some changes in you lately. I just wanted to check in with you. It sounds like you're having a tough time. It must be really hard to try to hold everything together when you're feeling this bad. Tell me more about what's happening. Maybe if I understand better, we can find a solution together. When did you start feeling like this? Did something happen that started it? Feeling depressed isn't a sign of weakness. It takes courage to speak up. Conversation just started. It's not algebra. No, algebra is pretty easy. It won't calculus. Look, I failed calculus 3 times. I don't know why I kept going back. I don't know. I'm still confused. But just that simple, right? Start the conversation. You don't want to be shoulda, coulda, woulda. Man, I should have said something, something, something. And you didn't. Offer support. I really want to help. What can I do to help you right now? Would you like me to go with you to a support group? Let's sit down together and look for a place to get help. I can go with you if you need me to. It's just that simple, right? I told the teens a couple weeks ago when we had our roundtable talk, and one of them asked me a question about, what do you do when you see that somebody's not doing well, and you ask and they shove you off? It's as simple as telling somebody you are there. I know that there's something going on with you, and you might not want to talk right now, but when you're ready, know I'm here. I want you to know that I can notice that there's a change, and there's something going on, and I can feel it. And you don't have to tell me, but know that I'm here, right? What do you need from me in this moment? How can I best support you? Just those words right there. How can I best support you? Because it's not about me. How can I support you? Right? Be a friend. So learn more about mental health conditions. It's all nice and fancy once a year when we come down and we sit and do this. Everybody got one of these. Google is great and bad. For a lot of things, it's great. If you don't know about a condition, start Googling. Start asking people. Y'all have the connections you don't even know to people that have this information. And if they don't know, I can guarantee you they can get you to the person that does. Avoid saying things like, you'll get over it, toughen up, you're fine. It's all in your head. You're just having a bad day. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Man up. You can deal with this on your own. Why are you talking about this stuff? Counseling is for sissies. What will your family say? You don't want people to think you're crazy. I have heard many of those. Support. Tell your friends it gets better. There is help and there is support out there for people. We have to get to the support, right? If you're worried about somebody, tell someone. You yourself, if you're worried that your symptoms are coming on and you feeling some stuff, tell somebody. Talk to somebody. Send a smoke signal. Somebody gonna pick it up. What do you say? I haven't felt like myself lately, and I don't know what to do. Can I talk to you about it? I'm worried about stuff that's going on right now. Do you have time to talk? I am really having a hard time. It's just that simple, right? As a church, we don't need silence. We need help. We silent on a whole bunch of stuff. A whole bunch of stuff. This is a place where people come to get help. So if we quiet on it, they're not going to get the help they need. You don't have to be licensed. You just need to be there to be supportive. And remember that it's 4 fingers, 3 fingers and a thumb, pointing back at you. So you go run and that person ain't going to talk no more. If somebody comes to you, you take that as an honor that someone would even come speak to you about their issues.
I wish this was something that we could do, or you could do, that you would be able to just talk about on an annual basis or just periodically, because I think when we get too far away from things like this, when it's not in our face all the time and present, we forget about it and we go back to our old ways. You know, the first thing you want to do is suppress it. Because like I said in the black community before, mental health was classified as crazy. You know, it wasn't about the things that happened to you that brought you to this place. It was only classified as crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, you know, just like what Toya was talking about too, people in leadership, you know, they suppress it even more because you don't want the people around you to see a chink in the armor. You know what I mean? And they, you know, some people with the wrong mentality look at that as a weakness. You know what I'm saying? It's a come up. You know what I'm saying? Some people would take that and run with it. So I get it. But I think this is something that needs to be consistent because I think it would help more if it was consistent because, like I said before, people want to suppress it. You know, when you're talking about it right now, you know, people are, you know, understanding and they want to be vocal. But once the meeting is over and we go back to our lives, we know how to suppress it. So, you know, you'll go back to doing that.
And we don't give your pastor no ideas. No, but like in our women's chat, I started doing Wellness Wednesdays. Check in. You don't have to get no explanation, but just check in. Thumbs up, thumbs down, happy face, sad face, a little tear rolling from your eye. Something. So I know that there's something going on. Right? Oh, and if you're not in the group me, see me after this, and I'll get you in that group me, girl. Oh.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hey. So for a person that actually is medically diagnosed with PTSD, severe depression, and anxiety, I feel that a lot of people, including myself, we don't tend to open up or speak to people because we feel a burden. Being that person that, like this lady over here was talking about how you're always that person that they run to. Like I have a ton of friends that run to me all the time. And I'm sitting here just like I'm barely on top, you know? But my heart tells me, okay, well, you're needed there. Hopefully one day I'll have somebody that will be there for me. But I did talk to the pastor about it, and it's funny that David said it. I did talk to the pastor about having something within the church. Because it was like, you know, at Devin's funeral, with having all of those young kids on the stage, there were so many of them that are suffering with some type of, you know, mental health issue. And imagine if they all walked in the door. What are we going to do? Sit here and pray the whole entire time? You know, and not to say that, like you say, that it doesn't work, it does. But some people need something more than being within that spirit. Like I need a face-to-face action. I need a hands-on action. So it is something that, you know, I feel that we should do within the church as well. Absolutely. If it is having a support group on Tuesday nights or having it, you know, I think a little bit more than just annually, obviously. Yeah. Because it is something that's just so high right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say too, sometimes even as a strong person, getting you an accountability partner. So one of my sorority sisters who's seen my post that I wasn't doing good, who I know also suffers from really, really high anxiety and stuff like that, she sent me a text, and for a long time, every single morning we sent each other, we didn't have to say words. I would put my pill in my hand and send her a picture, which meant she had to do the same. It was just that simple of having someone be like, and about once a week we would say, how you doing? How you feeling? Okay. It wasn't a lot, but just that check-in. So getting you a person and finding you a person. And the thing is, me and this sister, we don't even talk often. Like, she likes my stuff. We don't talk often, but it was good because it was someone that didn't know my day-to-day. She knows I'm busy. I'm busy. She knows that, but that didn't stop her from saying, we can do this together.
I used to work for this company, and I was a mental health specialist. And I just kind of seen a lot of bad stuff, you know, social services even as well. Years ago, the local LME, they got rid of it. And that's who used to be on top of this stuff. So when they did that, companies like, and I even did a little work for them, you have other companies that come in that does the funding. They good at building the state. and you know, you got a lot of homeless people that would come to the hospital and refuse treatment. So we can't bill if we got someone in there refusing. So what I start seeing is, if you got somebody like yourself dedicated, and you real, and you get your training, and you real, you know, you're gonna be faced with so many people that ain't real. They in there trying to get disability, or they in there trying to do something stupid that doesn't go with what you're doing, and it really hurts a lot of us. A lot of us are not in there no more because a lot of these pharmaceuticals has bought social services, they bought RHA behavior health. They don't even hire the psychologists like yourself that diagnose. They will contract them out. And he be just as crazy as the people we bringing in. They talking so much junk about him, like the experiences you get going to social services, the experience you get to going to behavior health, it's more business now. And they take people like me and you that's got the credentials and give us a good steak dinner from one of our best restaurants and have everybody on the staff come through and sign it to endorse this medicine that has a funny name we don't even know about. So when you got somebody that really need help, when you get to it, you thinking it ain't real like everybody else. So both of us suffering because the people that need help, most of them ain't serious. They there for false pretenses. And a lot of the staff, they there on false pretenses as well. So you don't really get help. You just got, the government is really their own problem because they don't care about the people. If me and you do our job for real, we get fired for that. They just want a face to say, look at what we doing. They do not want to help people. They want to stick you on meds that's going to give you it's going to turn you into a drug addict. It's going to have you all kind of other stuff, like the commercial. We're going to heal your headache, but you have 20 other problems wrong with you. So, you know, it goes back to the Garden of Eden. Like you said, when you stop covering and hiding and come out and be real, that's when God fixes it.
Absolutely.
So you can play with this stuff and end up with your child on a bunch of medicine, a bunch of shots. I've seen the sheriff department have to go get so many people for schizophrenia and different things. It's a business now. I've been on the board of directors for the Second Harvest Food Bank in Winston-Salem, even down to that. Kraft bought them out just so they can control how much food to give out.
Yeah.
So it's not even worth it for people like us that's had a program to even house people. So it's really a business now. And people lose hope. People lose faith. They give up. They get mad. They don't believe nobody can help them. And really, where I learned my stuff at was when they taught us rational therapy, to help a person rationalize what has happened to them, to help them make a conscious decision. That's the kind of stuff that helps. And like I said, what you talking is real good. But if they catch you doing it, you're going to lose your job.
So I have actually worked for social services and RHA. I will say it's somewhat of a generalization to say that everybody, because I have worked with some really, really good social workers, some really good therapists, but I've also worked with some really bad social workers and some really bad therapists. That's just like, we could say that for anything. All cops ain't bad, all white people ain't bad, all black people ain't bad. You know, there is a pot. I will say, to your point, yes, I left RHA when it became a for-profit. Unfortunately, it's a soapbox I'm not about to get on. I'm not about to do it. I ain't gonna do it. The resources in our community have dwindled. There are not enough resources for people. There are not enough resources for people. There are organizations. Yeah, I like how y'all working with me because my next part was, what do you do? So with the treatment, educating yourself, that psychotherapy, going somewhere, for some people medication, but that self-help. Figuring out, you know, what are your coping skills? What makes you feel better? Accountability partners, finding your tribe, doing that type of thing because the resources are not always there. Especially if you don't have the money. Some of us are blessed enough to have private insurance where we have a copay, right? Some of us are not. And those resources, I ain't gonna stand up here and lie to you, the resources are slim. But you do find people, You know, I've been asked before, do I charge? Because I feel like this is my gift, I could, but I don't. Every kid down there in Kid Zone, I have made them put my number in their phone, and I have had some of them call me at all kind of times. Can you come talk? I absolutely can. Where you at? I'll pull up. Because for me, that's how I feel. You know what? I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Everybody is not like that, but there are some people that are. But it takes for us to be the support more than looking for where can I go. Because you're right. That for-profit, boy. I mean, everything, church is a business. Everything is a business now, okay? Let's not get it twisted. Yeah. 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 It's yeah. Yeah. We have to get away from that. That's a whole nother thing. But how do we maintain our mental health? And this is it, y'all. This is it. I'm a mic drop. I'm not going to actually drop the mic, Joe. But this is mic drop. So just a couple things. You know, first I've already said finding the thing for you. But regular exercise. Ooh, I didn't say you had to do all of them. Eating a balanced diet and staying hydrated, aiming for good quality sleep, performing relaxing activities. So breathing exercises, let me tell y'all something. I used to think it was a crock until I found myself feeling anxious. I'm going to tell you, everybody do it. Okay. All right. Everybody sit up straight. We're going to breathe in. I'm going to tell you when to hold it, and then we're going to let it out, okay? So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do that 3 times in a row. Reset, okay? Let me tell you, I have been in situations where I have literally just the hormones that's in your brain just reset. A couple of them in a row, I'm telling you, when you find yourself in a stressful situation next time, do it. Before you respond, do it. Meditation. It don't work for me. I fall asleep. But I know people that it does work for, right? Again, this little thing right here is so smart. They got apps for everything. They have wellness apps. They have apps to help you meditate, to help you breathe, all of that in this little phone. Journaling, for some people, writing it down. We gave all the teenagers journals. Just write it down. I told them when I was little, I didn't know how to pray. I didn't think I did. So I used to write. So I would go, "Dear God, it's me, Brittany, again. How you doing? I'm doing fine." And I would literally write it out and leave it all on the paper. You can shred the paper afterwards, but you've gotten it out of you. It has to get out of you, right? Practicing gratefulness. So part of that is that mindfulness and that gratitude. The next one is the biggest thing. Challenging negative thoughts. So there's this thing, when y'all get home, look up thought distortions. Thought distortions. And you will see all these different ways. Even if you don't suffer from any type of mental health, you will start to see there's something called catastrophizing, which everything is blown up. Oh, you don't never do this. Da, 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 da. All or nothing. He always does this. You don't never tell me I look cute. Right? So there are all of these different types of negative thinking that we have on a daily basis. When you start to replace those thoughts, man, the way that things start to open up. So instead of going straight to the negative, start inputting things. So I'll be honest, I tell people all the time, I used it for my marriage. Before we got married, look, you can give me 2 things, I'd have made up a whole story. I know where you at, what you doing, who you with, what color you got on. And I done been there 10 minutes before you got there, right? That's me. I'm just saying. I'm a little bit crazy. Just not a lot, just a little. Maybe a lot. Depends on the day. Terry said a lot. You know. Depends on the day. If you know me, you know me. Like I said, this is me. I don't change. But what I started doing was, instead of saying, he ain't answering the phone, so he must be da-da-da. He's not answering the phone. Maybe his phone went dead. Maybe he left his phone in the car. He went to the grocery store and got me some flowers. He's going to surprise me with my favorite dinner tonight. Instantly. I stopped being so mad. I stopped being so bitter because I started replacing those thoughts. I stopped being so negative and challenged that thought. Like, why did I just think that? No, it could be a million different reasons. Look for positive social interaction. So when you feel yourself getting down and you don't want to go around people, that's when you need to go around people. That's the devil challenging that isolation. Just stay by yourself. Ruminate on that thought. I tell my friends all the time, I have one that's like, oh, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to go. You need to. You don't have to interact with everybody, but you need to be around people. You need to go it, because what happens when you start to smile is you start to trick your brain. There are hormones in your brain. Every time you smile, every time you laugh, they're released. And you start to trick your brain that you are happy. The last thing, say no. Everybody say no on 3. 1, 2, 3. No to new responsibilities when your plate is full. Say no. It's okay. They gonna still like you, and if they don't, that's on them. Say no, right? The last thing, this is really the last thing. I want us to all do an ending affirmation, okay? So everybody stand up if you can. So obviously my niche is the Black community. So if you're not a member of the Black community, you can insert, I'm gonna say insert here, okay? As a Black person, or as a insert here. Hold on, we're gonna try that again. Okay, we're gonna try that again. As a Black person, I deserve to live a healthy, full life in which I am safe, valued, and affirmed. Mic drop.
Let's give Brittany another hand tonight. Brittany, thank you so much for sharing your professional knowledge. And Brittany does have a passion, definitely for mental health. So I'm sure that if there's anybody in this congregation that would need, her number is on the screen. She would be willing to assist in any way that she can. Just a couple of announcements that I have, and the deacon on duty can come forward for the offering. Sharita Hines, wave your hand. Let's give her a hand. She's been doing an awesome job with our coffee bar. There will be a grand opening of Coffee Beyond Measure this Sunday, so please see her at the coffee bar on this Sunday. All men, wave your hands. Men on stream and in the congregation, Pastor has asked that all men meet him at 8:45 in the lounge this Sunday for coffee and biscuits. So, yum, yum. And you can prepare your offering, and I'm turning it over to Ralph. Thank you.
Remember, if you don't have your group me.
If you don't have group me, ladies, please see Brittany.
Let's give Sister Brittany, I wanted to say Walker. Yeah, let's give Sister Brittany another hand for awesome word. There's power in testimony. We appreciate your boldness and your transparency and your insight. I think we all were blessed with something. I know you mentioned that you know, when he came up, he's gonna be professional, and you know, and that's what you wasn't preaching, but you was gonna be professional. But I think you did preach to every one of us, and in your own way. We all have our own way of getting the word across. So thank you. So let's give him one more hand. Before we go into prayer, are there any other announcements? All right. Dear God, we just thank you for another opportunity to come together in this house of worship. Father God, we just thank you once again for our pastor and his willingness to allow others to come before you and give an awesome word. Father God, we thank you for our first family. We thank you for each member that we have here at Beyond Measure Ministries. Father God, we thank you for how you take care of us each and every day and how you're with us each and every day and protecting us. Father God, we just ask right now as we leave this place that we have traveling mercy until we meet again. Father God, we just ask that you bless the offering tonight, and we just pray that it be the uplifting of your kingdom. And we pray also for those that have a willingness to give but cannot. Father God, we know what's in their heart and what they desire. Father God, we ask these things in your precious and holy name. Amen.